We're back on Loose on the Lead on this Sunday morning and rounding the turn and heading for home. And look who we found. We reached out for a famous Italian jockey, and with Frankie Dettori probably just stumbling home now, we've got Rich Migliore.
Come on, tell everybody the truth. I was walking by and you said, hey, someone didn't show up. Can you fill in?
No. That's almost true.
That's what makes it exciting.
Richie, actually, you know, we will start with some jockey news across the board. And out of nowhere, not nowhere, but certainly right out of the blocks, the Dettori story really caught on. Friday, it just sort of wrote itself.
Yeah, and you know, if you want to see how and why it's so important to win at Saratoga, here's a guy who won the Dubai World Cup many times, Epsom Derbies, Arc de Triomphe. He wins an A other than in Saratoga, and he's pumping his fist and doing flying dismounts and playing to the crowd. He is so enthusiastic, and this was a lifelong dream of his, he said, to come to Saratoga, so he said he's got something off his bucket list.
And I said that this rolls into it. The fans up here are so savvy. He comes back to the winning circles. Frankie, Frankie. They're all completely clued into the situation.
It's great, and he's a great ambassador for the sport, and he's a great rider, and I think he showcased that. You know, you think about how races are run in Europe, holding up, covered up. He was taking it to guys. He was putting horses on the lead. He adjusted pretty quickly to American-style racing, and that's what great riders do.
Well, and in fact, you know, you talk about that second win on Friday, how he carried that filly, that import, how he carried her to the wire when she looked absolutely beat late. I was astounding.
What was even more impressive about that is, I mean, obviously all of his abilities, his strength was on display, but the guy was in Istanbul Wednesday.
Oh, and the challenge.
Rode in London Thursday, was here Friday. I mean, to think he could possess still that strength and be that clear-minded after all the traveling and watching his weight. But I thought, boy, that was about as strong a finish as you're going to see from anybody.
Yeah.
That was impressive. We're going to see a strong finish here as we watch from yesterday, the first Grade 1 of the meet, Rich. And I really want you to talk about this because something has gone on with Michael Matz and the blinkers that he has put on Somali Lemonade. And boy, how impressive is this? She wins, but doesn't even win the way you would expect her to win.
Well, that was the thing that I thought was pretty funny. I liked her. I even said on the Saratoga Insider Show the night before, I really like Somali Lemonade and the Diana. But I thought she'd go wire to wire.
Exactly.
Because they've been allowing her to kind of flaunt her speed, and I think she, you know, she's kind of looked to me a bit one-paced, although this kind of dispels that idea. She's had a perfect trip in the pocket, no pace on whatsoever. I mean, Seth, I got to ask you, when you watch some of these races and you see no pace development, what goes through your mind?
I want to shoot myself in the head.
Oh, gosh. Well, don't go that far, but...
it is very frustrating now, though, because if you're sitting in the back of the pack, you realize when they, you know, hit midpoint in the backstretch, you start to think, I have no shot now. They're not going to, I can't make up any ground.
Well, you know, because it makes it twice as tough, obviously, because it's a slow pace. The horses from behind are at a disadvantage already. But now they're most likely not going to get through because the guys in front have more control of their horses. They're not tiring as much. They're still fresh, turning for home. They're still in the bridle. So they're going to be forced wide when the race is speeding up at its most. It's almost impossible to win from behind, except Somali Lemonade sitting the perfect inside pocket turf trip, doesn't have more than a length and a half to make up. And when the Altariti kicked on and she had that seam, boy, you knew she was going to get there when she got the length in her stride.
You know, we'll give the credit to Somali Lemonade. We'll notate that certainly Stephanie's Kitten ran a much improved race in here. You see her rallying into the pace and probably was best, but got to be very encouraged by Discreet Mark's performance after a couple of real mediocre outings. The New York bred filly gets this Grade 1, adds to her already impressive resume, and I know Clement was delighted with her performance.
Oh, yeah, to be extremely happy with that. She's won going a mile and an eighth. I just don't think she actually wants to stay a mile and an eighth. And you think about some of her races early on, how much speed she showed going a mile at Belmont in particular. I almost think that she's a filly. Maybe her brilliance is her best weapon. Let her use more of that speed and maybe not go quite as far.
Well, she certainly the top finishers in this very deep edition of the Diana, and it is very notable that you know at a race meet, Rich, that has its very clear mileposts in terms of the Whitney and the Test and the Travers and the King's Bishop, and now, of course, the Woodward at the end of the meet added, and all the 2-year-old standards. This Diana, year in, year out, is outstanding. And this one, Coffee Click, think about what this would have been had Brian Lynch been able to bring Coffee Click here.
Well, to me, Diana is one of those races that falls under the category, for me personally, as an unofficial classic. Because every year, it's got that classic quality to it, and it never disappoints, never.
This was a terrific gathering, and we'll see where the turf fillies and mares, how they proceed from here. But it's certainly a division that's got a lot of depth for going forward as we move toward Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, a lot of depth, and you know, it's funny, we start talking about Breeders' Cup. It's really not that far away anymore. It seems like we get through Saratoga, and most of the horses, if they're going to have another prep at all, it'll be one, and then it's the Breeders' Cup.
Got to ask, too, since we used riding and jockeys as the introduction to the conversation, and we watched already, we've had a series of very tight finishes, and yesterday, we just had Tony Dutrow a half an hour ago. And
great trainer.
Absolutely. The race with Devilish Love and Fade to Black, how did you see that, Rich, and how should those that were frustrated at a non-call view the steward's decision?
I thought it was really good hard race riding. I didn't think Joe Rocco went over the line till maybe a step before the wire, and it might have been a step on the wire or after the wire. It was very hard to judge, and it wasn't a true head-on that they showed. So it kind of, you know, you really can't make a certain judgment about if he went over that line or not. Certainly they got to leaning on each other, and he tightened it up. I mean, listen, but you know what, that's his job. Excuse me as I drop my mic. That's his job. To tighten things up and not go over the line, and I thought he did a good job of that. I could see him leaving it alone. The only thing is you got to be careful if you're going to let the boys play. Understand that it's going to be kind of rough out there, and everybody's got to understand it needs to be the same every day. If you're going to start then calling guys in for these kind of infractions, well then you better give them a heads up and say, hey, that's enough. We're gonna tighten things down. It's just when they change it day to day.
I was with you on both points. It wouldn't have shocked me to see him flip it and move the order of finish, but I thought that was not very good race riding. But again, for me, it would have been tough for the stewards to make a call in that particular instance because you didn't have a really clear head-on.
It wasn't a true head-on, and you know, I wouldn't argue when anybody said it should have come down. I wouldn't argue when anybody said it should have stayed up. It was one of those that if maybe we had a true head-on, we would have had a different opinion. I'm not sure, but again, you got to be consistent now, though. If this is allowed.
As you mentioned, it happened right at the wire where things really tightened up, which was more a function of where the hedge is, it looked like.
It almost looks like the hedge kind of juts out a bit right at the finish line.
Yeah, which made that kind of a funny situation. And as I say, it looked like it tightened up, and it was only when they went back to the pan shot that I realized, oh, they were right on the wire when that happened. So
yeah, and think about the Sanford yesterday. I mean, how roughly run that race was. You know, it's up to the stewards to set the parameters and to make sure the guys stay within those lines. Yeah.
We've got to stay within our lines as well. And as we wrap up with Rich Migliore, a reminder that later this afternoon, Fox Sports 1, the Jockey Club Tour on Fox.
Yes, 5:30 to 7:30. We'll be covering the coaching club as well as the Eddie Reed out from Del Mar. So 2-hour show tonight.
Nice.
6 horses in both of those races, and the progress into Del Mar and Saratoga continue. Rich, as always, appreciate it.
Love being with you guys, and just quickly, I know we're out of time, but Rosario Montañez was injured yesterday, so good thoughts and prayers to him.
At the top of the show, we had his agent on.
Okay.
Give us a little update. And he said he looks like he'd come back 100%. But, you know, he'd be in the hospital for a while.
Scary incident.
All right, we will wrap things up for Loose on the Lead for this Sunday morning. Our opening edition.